Welcome back to Tightwad Workshop. Today we've been given a commission to repair the leg on this coffee table. And not just any coffee table, this is a map of Australia coffee table. As you know, we've recently been reclassified as an educational channel, and therefore we're required by law to have educational content in every episode. So to cover us with that, JT is now going to give a quick presentation about Australia. JT? Thanks, Mr. Tightwad. For those who are unfamiliar, Australia is located here. Our chief exports are iron ore, coal and children's television programs. Our favourite sports are cricket and telling foreigners about our dangerous native wildlife. Back to you, Mr. Tightwad. Thanks, JT, for that very informative and accurate presentation. So the reason why this leg is broken is because the grain of the wood's running horizontally rather than vertically. I'm not going to be able to glue this back in place and get a clamp on it as it is, so we're going to have to remove this leg. And this one is also loose, so we might as well remove them both. Let's go ahead and do that now. Since this leg's already loose, we can just lever it free with a chisel. I'll use this piece of scrap wood as a fulcrum. Instead of this single nail, we'll use some dowels when we reassemble the table for extra strength. The glue was still holding on the second leg, that's probably why the leg broke in two. Just a single nail here as well. Our new glue won't stick well to the old glue, so we need to clean up this area before we reassemble the table. A chisel will do the job, but a plane's faster and easier. That's all we need to do for the table top, so now let's take a look at the broken leg. We won't be able to clamp the pieces together with all these ragged splinters in the way. So let's get to work with a chisel and clean it up. That looks more promising. I bought these pipe clamps at a garage sale recently. You need to use some scrap wood for packing or the clamps will dent your workpiece. It's always a good idea to do a dry test fit first, just to make sure that your clamps will work. That looks pretty good, so let's unclamp and glue it all together. The table originally used PVA glue, and since that worked okay for 30 years, we might as well stick with it. The surface still has plenty of splinters, so be extra careful if you're spreading the glue with your fingers. I'm jiggling the pieces together here to spread the glue onto the second piece of wood. So now we can tighten up the clamps until we see the glue start to squeeze out. That's bowing upwards, so I'll add a few blocks underneath the pipe clamps to make enough clearance for a couple of hand screw clamps. Okay, let's remove the clamps and see how it looks. Well, the glue's definitely holding together okay, but the joint's still a little bit rough around the break, so I'll smooth it off with the plane. I'll also use the plane to remove the old glue from the top of the legs. Now we can cut a suitable piece of wood for the new leg brace. A little work with the plane should clean that up nicely. That void's too deep to plane out, so let's just call it a feature. The brace will fit between the table legs like this. We'll add some dowels to reinforce the joints at each end, here and here. First we need to mark the location for the joint. I'll measure the thickness of the brace and mark it on the legs. Now I'll measure the brace's height and mark that as well. That looks good, so I'll mark the other leg in the same way. Next I'll mark a line down the middle of the brace. Then we can mark the locations for the dowels. Here's a method for accurately finding your dowel hold locations. First, drive some short nails into your dowel marks. Just make sure they're straight. Then use your pliers to cut off their heads. You need to make sure that all the nails are cut to the same length. Now we can stand up our table leg against this bench stop, then line up the brace with our pencil markings, and then we'll tap the brace with a hammer. We want to hit it just hard enough to leave these indents on the leg. Now we can remove the nails and drill those dowel holes. This auger bit's very sharp and it'll give us nice clean dowel holes. I'll use this masking tape to make a depth indicator around the bit. This out of focus shot is how you know you're watching a genuine tightwad workshop video. If you use a long drill bit like this, you can use the workbench top to check on your vertical alignment. Now we can drill the dowel holes in the sides of the legs. Next I'll measure and cut the dowel pegs to 40mm, that's about 1.5 inches. Let's try a test fit of the legs and the brace. If we're lucky, all of our joints will line up correctly. These dowel pins are another way to transfer your dowel locations to the second piece of wood. You drill your dowel holes into the first piece of wood, then insert a pin into the hole. This point then works in the same way as our cut-off nails from before. So now I'll drill the dowel holes into the tops of the legs, then assemble the legs and brace on the tabletop. Now I'll insert a dowel pin into each of the 4 holes. Then we just need to tap the leg with our hammer. The pin leaves this indent, and that shows where we need to drill the dowel holes. So now we're ready to insert the dowels and glue everything together. I'll also put glue along the whole top side of the brace so that it will firmly attach to the tabletop. Lining up the final pair of dowels can be tricky. Make sure you wipe up any excess glue with a wet rag. Now we need to clamp the parts together. I'll use the sash clamps to hold the legs and the brace. I'll use this sheet of particle board and some heavy weights to hold the leg assembly against the tabletop. Those weights that we used for the top are some big cast iron blocks donated by Cooma Monaro Railway. They're very old. Let's remove these clamps and see how it looks. It's a bit wobbly, but that won't matter if the table's on a carpeted floor. Now, since I wasn't contracted to sand and refinish the table, we just have one thing left to do. We can't forget Tasmania. I've enlarged Tasmania from this image to the same scale as the tabletop. This leftover piece of the brace board should work just fine. I'll just cut out the map and glue it to the block. Hopefully, my old bandsaw will last long enough to finish the job. Now for every woodworker's favourite task, sanding. I think that turned out okay, so let's move on to the next step. First, we'll make sure that Tasmania is accurately geographically located. I'm going to use a beam and bracket attachment method for Tasmania. I'm not using glue here so that the client can easily remove this bracket if they don't like it. Now we just have to attach Tasmania to the beam and we are done. So if you're entertaining guests and somebody complains about your table's geographical incompleteness, you can just reveal your hidden Tasmania and prove them wrong. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Tightwad Workshop is filmed in front of a live studio audience.